No, na ke kuai kana hele hele ia la ia ke ki o hu e ka ua gogo. O na kino malu kalani malu e ho ulu ana o laka I kona maukahu. O makono, o makono, o makono.
Hi, I'm Eric Kwong. I'm the creator of Regenerative Decision Making. Regenerative Decision Making is a tool in the form of a decision-making process through which decision makers everywhere persuade themselves to exponentially adopt regenerative options for scaling back the extraction flows and pollution flows of a system called the human enterprise and allowing the planet's regenerated biosphere to reverse the planet's ecological crises and allow the planet to heal itself. In this 5-part video series, I'm showing you how a model for human and planetary well-being called Doughnut Economics can help us design a decision-making process for reversing the planet's ecological crises. In the 4th video of this series, I shared with you a regenerative decision-making process usable by decision makers everywhere because it is exponentially copyable by decision makers everywhere. For shifting decision makers everywhere from an unlimited downside of exponentially growing incurred pollution to an unlimited upside of exponentially growing avoided pollution, from an unlimited downside of exponentially growing species extinctions to an unlimited upside of exponentially growing number of species per area, and from an unlimited downside of exponentially growing incurred costs of adapting to the planet's ecological crises to an unlimited upside of exponentially growing avoided costs delivered by regenerative options that decision makers want to adopt. Now, here's the secret about regenerative options. We have an abundance of regenerative options. Paul Hawken's Project Drawdown showed that we have available to us right now 91 kinds of regenerative options that, when widely adopted, were estimated to yield more than $97 trillion of avoided costs and more than 1 trillion tons of avoided carbon pollution. In other words, Project Drawdown estimated the green area to have a value of more than $97 trillion of avoided costs, and estimated that same green area to have a value of more than 1 trillion tons of avoided carbon pollution. With more than $97 trillion of avoided costs and more than 1 trillion tons of avoided carbon pollution on the table, regenerative decision-making presents what might be the most extraordinary opportunity in human history for reversing the planet's ecological crises. For winning those trillions of dollars of avoided costs and winning a trillion tons of avoided carbon pollution, decision makers everywhere will demand regenerative information services in the form of accurate evaluations, comparisons, and measurements of performance benefits, economic benefits, and regeneration benefits of options for meeting human physical needs. As we have already seen, options for meeting human physical needs fall into two categories. The first category is things we extract options. Things we extract options are options for extracting things from the biosphere. Things like forests, fresh water, wildlife, soils, and minerals. The second category is things we use options. Things we use options are options for using those things we extract in the forms of energy options, water options, materials and chemicals options, food and fiber options, and manufacturers and structures options. What might a computer-implemented application or app look like that delivers regenerative information services? An app that delivers regenerative information services might deliver those services in the form of accurate evaluations, comparisons, and measurements of performance benefits, economic benefits, and regeneration benefits of things we extract options and things we use options. Specifically, an app that delivers regenerative information services might look like an app that processes performance data for evaluating, comparing, and measuring performance benefits of things we extract options, might look like an app that processes incurred cost data for evaluating, comparing, and measuring economic benefits of things we extract options, and might look like an app that processes number of species per area data for evaluating, comparing, and measuring regeneration benefits of things we extract options. Specifically, an app that delivers regenerative information services might look like an app that processes performance data for evaluating, comparing, and measuring performance benefits of things we use options, might look like an app that processes incurred cost data for evaluating, comparing, and measuring economic benefits of things we use options, and might look like an app that processes incurred pollution data for evaluating, comparing, and measuring regeneration benefits of things we use options. Here's the good news about an app for delivering regenerative information services. We, as human beings, are really good at creating devices for processing vast amounts of data into usable information, and we're really good at creating apps for communicating that usable information to human beings everywhere. an app for delivering regenerative information services to decision makers everywhere for exponentially adopting regenerative options and reversing the planet's ecological crises is well within the technological and informational capabilities of human beings. Let's look again at the figure showing the $97 trillion upside of investments in regenerative information services. I draw your attention to the tiny red sliver labeled Investments in Regenerative Information Services. That red sliver represents the time and money that decision makers will need to invest in regenerative information services to win that $97 trillion upside. That red sliver is a cost for decision makers, but for providers of regenerative information services, that red sliver is income. How much income might we be talking about in that little red sliver? If the avoided cost benefits of regenerative options are more than $97 trillion as estimated by Project Drawdown, and if decision makers are willing to invest as much as $1 in regenerative information services to win $100 of those avoided cost benefits, then that little red sliver might look like a $970 billion market for regenerative information services. To put that $970 billion market in context, the market capitalization as of June 2020 for Google, the world's third largest provider of information services, was about $980 billion. In other words, regenerative information services has the potential to be a $1 trillion information services industry on a par with Google. Let's go back to the donut to recap the main themes of this presentation. First, human decision-making for adopting options that meet human physical needs is creating the planet's ecological crises. Second, human political economic decision-making for deciding who gets what is creating human society's crises of who gets what. Third, regenerative decision-making is a tool in the form of a decision-making process for exponentially adopting regenerative options that meet human physical needs for reversing the planet's ecological crises and allowing the planet to heal itself. As soon as the databases are established for evaluating, comparing, and measuring the performance, economic, and regeneration benefits of things we extract options and things we use options, decision makers everywhere can start using regenerative decision making for reversing the planet's ecological crises and allowing the planet to heal itself. Do you want to find out just how powerful you can be for reversing the planet's ecological crises? If this appeals to you, please share this video and please consider subscribing to my Regenerative Decision Making Substack channel at erikkvam.substack.com. Thank you for listening, and aloha.